Welcome to our deep dive. This time, it's all about growth mindset. I've been digging into all this research on how believing intelligence can be developed can actually change, change your brain, your motivation, your whole approach to learning. It's amazing. We've got academic papers, teacher guides, even a whole website dedicated to this.
It really is remarkable how much evidence there is that our mindsets aren't set in stone.
All right.
That fixed mindset, like that feeling I'm just not a math person or I'm not creative, that's something we can actually shift.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit for our listener. What exactly is a growth mindset? And how's it different from that fixed mindset you mentioned?
Well, at its core, a growth mindset is the belief that your abilities aren't fixed. It's understanding that you can actually get smarter, more creative, more skilled through effort, practice, and learning from your mistakes.
Yeah.
A fixed mindset, on the other hand, it's kind of like seeing your abilities as this set of labels,
Yeah.
good at this, bad at that, and those labels just never change.
So with a fixed mindset, you're constantly trying to prove yourself. But a growth mindset is all about the process of getting better.
Exactly. And you know what? What we know about growth mindset PDF we have, it lays this out really well. It's a table comparing how fixed versus growth mindsets view things, everything from effort to the whole point of going to school.
Oh, wow.
Someone with a fixed mindset, they see effort as a sign of weakness. But someone with a growth mindset, they see effort as the fuel for growth.
Oh, that really resonates with me. I think back to times when I've avoided things
Yeah.
because I was afraid of looking dumb or not being immediately good at them. It's almost like that fear of effort kept me from even trying. I don't know. What do you think, listener? Have you ever felt that way?
Oh, yeah. It's such a common experience. And it really highlights why understanding this difference in mindsets is so important. Because here's the thing. The research is pretty clear that a growth mindset isn't just this feel-good idea. It actually leads to tangible results.
Oh, yeah. That PDF mentions this study in Chile, where students with a growth mindset were 3 times more likely to be top performers. 3 times. That's huge.
It's a huge difference. And it's not just about grades. What's so fascinating is why a growth mindset leads to those better outcomes. It's about resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks, learn from mistakes, and keep going even when things get tough.
So it's like that growth mindset gives you this extra layer of grit
Yeah.
and determination.
Absolutely. And this isn't just about students.
No, right.
This applies to anyone in any field who is trying to learn and grow. Think about athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, even parents.
Yeah.
Anyone facing challenges and striving to improve, a growth mindset can be a game changer.
Okay, so we're talking about this real difference
Yeah.
in how we approach challenges and setbacks. But how does this actually play out in our brains? Is there something different happening neurologically between someone with a fixed mindset and someone with a growth mindset?
There is. Neuroscientists are finding that a growth mindset actually changes how our brains respond to mistakes. For example, the Moser study, it's highlighted in that APS article, found that people with a growth mindset, they showed greater awareness of their errors. Their brains lit up more strongly in areas that are associated with learning from mistakes.
Wow. So it's not that they just make fewer errors, but they're more tuned into them, and they're able to extract lessons from those errors.
Exactly. And they don't just recognize the mistake, they actually use it to improve. There's this concept, it's called post-error accuracy. Researchers like Schroeder have shown that children with growth mindsets, they show better post-error accuracy. They learn and they adjust from their mistakes, which leads to faster progress. Let me ask you, think about a time you made a mistake, maybe at work or in a hobby. Did you see that as a failure? Or did you figure out how to do better next time?
Ooh, that's such a great question. I'm starting to see how this shift in perspective, from fearing mistakes to embracing them as learning opportunities, could be so powerful. It's like you're turning those little stumbles
Yeah.
into fuel for growth.
That's the heart of it. And this ties into another crucial piece of the puzzle. Motivation.
Okay.
Specifically, intrinsic motivation, which is about finding joy and satisfaction in the process of learning, not just the outcome, or some external reward.
So it's about being driven by the love of the game, not just the score.
Yes. And that's where that neuroscience article's point about dopamine comes in.
Okay.
Dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
It's the neurotransmitter that's associated with pleasure and reward. And
Yeah.
guess what? It's released not just when we achieve a goal, but also when we're engaged in that process of learning, especially when we're making progress.
So a growth mindset helps us tap into that natural reward system in our brain. So then learning itself becomes more enjoyable and more motivating.
Exactly. Instead of seeking validation from external sources, like grades or praise. Someone with a growth mindset finds the reward in the process of expanding their knowledge and abilities. That feeling of, I'm figuring this out, I'm getting better, that becomes the driver.
This is all making so much sense. But I have a feeling our listener might be wondering the same thing I am. Is it really possible to change your mindset? Like, what if you've always leaned towards that fixed mindset? Are you just stuck?
That's a great question. And thankfully, the research suggests that we are not stuck at all. Our mindsets are malleable. We can actually cultivate a growth mindset, even if it doesn't come naturally at first.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. Tell me more. How do we actually make that shift?
Well, research by Carol Dweck, it was featured in that APS article, has shown that even relatively simple interventions can have a big impact.
Wow.
There are online programs that focus on teaching people about the brain's plasticity, the idea that it can change and grow throughout life. And these programs have been shown to shift mindsets, especially for students who are struggling.
So even if we spent years thinking, I'm just not good at this, we can retrain our brains to embrace that growth mindset.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual effort. Dweck's research also emphasizes the importance of the environment, the supportive learning environment, where teachers, peers, and even parents encourage a growth mindset can make a huge difference. It's about creating this culture where effort is celebrated, mistakes are seen as learning opportunities, and everyone believes in their potential to grow.
So it sounds like it's not just about changing our own thinking, but about being part of a community
Yeah.
that supports that growth mindset. But I think it'd be really helpful to see how this plays out in real life. Do you have any examples of how a growth mindset makes a difference in practice?
Absolutely. One example that I find particularly inspiring is how Dweck herself, in her Stanford seminar, she encourages students to view college as a new job, focused on contribution, not just grades. This subtle shift in perspective can have a profound impact on their motivation and engagement.
It's like reframing the whole experience from like prove you're smart
Yeah.
to contribute your talents and learn as much as you can.
Exactly. And this shift in thinking, it isn't just for college students. It can be applied to any area of life. Another powerful example is this case study of Fisk Elementary. It's featured on the Mindset Works website,
Okay.
this school. They intentionally cultivated a growth mindset culture,
Yeah.
and they saw remarkable gains in student math scores, even while state averages stayed flat.
Wow.
It shows that a growth mindset can transform not just individual lives, but entire communities.
It's like they created this fertile ground for learning and growth. So we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored what a growth mindset is, why it matters, how it impacts our brains and motivation, and even some early examples of how it plays out in real-world settings.
We have, and in the next part, we'll
Right.
continue our exploration and look specifically at how a growth mindset can transform learning in those challenging STEM fields, and how teachers can create those supportive environments that foster growth in their students.
Sounds like we're just getting started. So stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into the world of growth mindset. Welcome back to our deep dive on growth mindset. Last time, we were exploring what a growth mindset is and how it can really boost learning. But I'm curious to see how this plays out in specific areas, especially where people might feel like they just don't have that natural talent.
That's a great point. We often hear things like, I'm just not a math person, or I'm not creative,
Right.
Those are classic fixed mindset statements, and they can be so limiting. One area where research has revealed some really interesting findings is in STEM fields, so science, technology, engineering, and math.
STEM. Yeah, that's what I've been seeing is these fields where you either you have it or you don't. It can feel pretty intimidating if you don't see yourself as a science whiz or a tech genius.
Exactly, and that's where a growth mindset can be so transformative. Do you remember that study by Elizabeth Canning and her colleagues? It looked at STEM professors and their students, and it found that classrooms led by professors with a fixed mindset, they actually had racial achievement gaps up to twice as large as those led by professors with a growth mindset.
Wait, so a professor's own mindset about intelligence affected how well their students performed, especially students from underrepresented groups. That's kind of wild.
It is. It seems that those fixed mindset beliefs can unintentionally reinforce those negative stereotypes, like that some students just aren't cut out for STEM. But when professors truly believe that all students can grow and develop those abilities, it creates a much more inclusive and supportive environment.
I'm starting to see how this can have like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
If a teacher believes in their students' potential, those students are more likely to believe in themselves and put in the effort to succeed.
Precisely. And on the flip side, Those fixed mindset messages, even subtle ones, they can be incredibly discouraging. It makes you wonder how many talented individuals might have been steered away from STEM careers simply because they didn't receive those encouraging, growth-oriented messages from their teachers or mentors.
That's a sobering thought. But on a more positive note, this research also offers a lot of hope. It suggests that we can create these learning environments that empower all students to thrive in STEM, regardless of their background or their perceived abilities.
Absolutely. It's about shifting away from that deficit-based model and recognizing that potential that exists within every student. But, for the listener who isn't a student, it also shows the importance of recognizing the messages that we send about intelligence and potential in all areas of life, because we're all mentors to someone in some way.
That's a great point. So how do we actually put this into practice? If you're a teacher, what can you do to foster a growth mindset in your classroom?
Well, it starts with recognizing that a growth mindset isn't just something you teach, it's something you embody. Teachers who model a growth mindset, who are open about their own struggles and celebrate that process of learning, they create a much more authentic and impactful learning experience for their students.
So it's not just about saying the right words, but about really living those growth mindset principles.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about pretending you don't make mistakes or that learning is always easy. It's about being honest, about the effort involved, and highlighting the joy of progress.
Makes sense. It's about normalizing the ups and downs of learning, right? Like those moments of frustration. When you hit a wall, showing students that those moments aren't failures, but they're opportunities to learn and grow. But beyond just modeling, are there specific things that teachers can do in their classrooms to cultivate this mindset in their students?
There are so many. One really powerful strategy is to shift the focus from praising ability to praising effort and process. So instead of telling a student, "You're so smart," we can acknowledge their hard work and the specific strategies they use to succeed, like, "I noticed how much effort you put into that problem," or "You really persevered even when you felt stuck."
That reminds me of that table we were talking about earlier from the What We Know About Growth Mindset PDF, where it compares how fixed versus growth mindsets interpret effort. A fixed mindset sees effort as a bad thing, like a sign you're not naturally gifted. A growth mindset sees it as the pathway to getting better.
Exactly. And by praising effort, we're reinforcing that message and helping students internalize it. Another powerful strategy is to explicitly teach students about how the brain works, how it changes and grows through learning and effort.
So like actually explaining neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself. That seems pretty advanced for young kids, but maybe it's more about like the general concept.
Yeah, you're right. It depends on the age group. But even young children can grasp the basic idea that their brains are like muscles that get stronger with exercise. There are age-appropriate ways to explain this, and it can be incredibly empowering for students to understand that their brains aren't fixed,
Right.
that they can literally grow and develop through their actions.
That's so cool. Are there other things teachers can do, maybe in their day-to-day interactions with students, to reinforce that growth mindset message?
Absolutely. Even small changes in language can make a big difference. So instead of saying, "You got this wrong," we can say, "Let's figure out where you got stuck and how we can approach this differently next time." It's about focusing on that learning process, not just the right or wrong answer.
I love that. It's such a subtle shift, but it completely changes the message from "you failed" to "let's learn from this."
Exactly. Another powerful approach is to create opportunities for students to collaborate and learn from each other. When students work together, they're exposed to different perspectives and problem-solving strategies, and they learn to value the process of learning as a team.
That takes some of the pressure off of individual performance.
Yeah.
And it creates a more supportive learning environment.
It does, and it also reinforces the idea that learning is an ongoing journey, not a destination.
Speaking of journeys, I think we've reached a natural stopping point. For this part of our deep dive, we've explored how a growth mindset can transform STEM learning and some key strategies for teachers to cultivate this mindset in their classrooms.
We have. But what about everyone else? A growth mindset isn't just for students and teachers. It's for anyone who wants to learn, grow, and reach their full potential, regardless of their age or their field of interest.
That's a great point. So in our final part, we'll explore how a growth mindset can benefit everyone, and we'll delve into some practical strategies for cultivating this powerful way of thinking in our own lives. Welcome back to our final part on growth mindset. This deep dive has been so insightful, but I'm really curious now to see how we can apply all this to our own lives. It's not just for students in a classroom, right?
Absolutely not. It's for anyone at any stage of life who wants to keep learning and growing and reaching their potential. Think about it. How often do we limit ourselves by thinking, I'm just not good at that, or I'm too old to learn something
Oh,
new?
all the time. Those fixed mindset voices can be so loud. It's like they hold us back from even trying.
And that's the power of consciously cultivating a growth mindset. It's about recognizing those limiting beliefs and challenging them with the evidence that we've been discussing. Remember that study about the brain's plasticity, how it can change and grow throughout life? That means we're not stuck with the abilities we have now. We can actually develop new skills, improve in areas we've struggled with, and even change our talents and interests over time.
Okay, that is encouraging. But I think a lot of people might still feel a little overwhelmed by the idea of completely changing their mindset. Like, where do you even begin?
You're right, it can feel daunting. But remember, it's a journey, not a race. Start small. Choose one area of your life where you want to experiment with a growth mindset. Maybe it's something you've always wanted to try, but you felt intimidated by, like learning a new language, taking up a musical instrument, or even just speaking up more at work.
Yeah, that's a great point. It doesn't have to be this huge life overhaul. Just pick one thing and approach it with that growth mindset.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about magically becoming an expert overnight. It's about embracing that process, the effort, the inevitable setbacks, and seeing those as opportunities to learn and grow. I don't know, what would that look like for you, listener? What's one area you've maybe avoided because of that fixed mindset voice?
Oh, that's such a good question to reflect on.
Okay.
I know for me, it's often been around creative pursuits. I've always loved to write, but I have this fixed mindset voice in my head that says, you're not a real writer. So I tend to shy away from putting my work out there.
And how could you approach that writing with a growth mindset?
Well, instead of focusing on being good or bad, I could focus on the process of writing itself, the joy of creating, experimenting with different styles, and, getting feedback to improve. It's about shifting the focus from judgment to growth.
Exactly. And remember those neural pathways we talked about? Every time you approach a challenge with a growth mindset, you're literally strengthening those connections in your brain, making it easier to learn and adapt in the future. It's like you're building mental muscles.
Oh, that's a great analogy. The more we exercise those growth mindset muscles, the stronger and more resilient we become. But let's be real, it's not always easy to do this on our own. Are there resources or strategies that can help?
There are. First, remember those online interventions. Those can be incredibly helpful for rewiring those fixed mindset beliefs. And that Mindset Works website we mentioned, it has tons of resources, articles, videos, even an assessment to help you gauge your current mindset. But it's also about the people you surround yourself with. Seek out mentors and friends who support your growth and challenge you to step outside your comfort zone. Having those cheerleaders in your corner can make a world of difference.
It's like having a growth mindset support system. Those people who remind us that we're capable of so much more than we often give ourselves credit for.
Absolutely. And don't underestimate the power of inspiration either. Read stories about people who've overcome challenges and achieved amazing things. Remember that example from Dweck's Stanford seminar where she encourages students to focus on their contribution, not just their grades. That's a powerful reframe that can be applied to any area of life.
It's about shifting from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance, recognizing the unique talents and perspectives that we each have to offer.
And that, ultimately, is what a growth mindset is all about. Unlocking our potential and making a meaningful contribution to the world around us.
Well, this deep dive has been incredible. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for approaching challenges and pursuing my goals. What about you, listener? What's one thing you're taking away from this conversation?
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you. And remember, that journey of growth is ongoing. And there's always more to discover and learn. But the key is to keep that growth mindset front and center. Embrace those challenges and never stop learning.
I love that. So to our listeners, you leave you with this challenge. What one area of your life could benefit from a growth mindset right now? Choose it, embrace the journey, and watch yourself grow.
Until next time, keep diving deep.